She wore a suit, clothes that were... Who's this for?
DOE is really failing these kids. What the hell? Peach chicken and carrots? And look at this biscuit. Nah, this is absurd.
You know, public schools failed so charter schools could thrive. Okay? Understand, if it wasn't for all of the ridiculousness happening in public schools, these charter schools would not be able to thrive in our communities at all. They would not survive, like not one bit. Now, I already did my video on charter schools. Go check that out. I've also been doing story times and short form content on my teaching experiences, etc. Everything is going to be linked down below or in this lovely QR code. Also, on my personal channel, I've been doing vlogs of me going to work, working with these kids. Obviously, now we're in the summer, all right? But everything you need is going to be over there, like regarding personal stuff. I've done a story time series on a Newark charter school that I was at, and then I just finished at a Brooklyn charter, and it was a horrible experience. Top-notch work, my best story time work to date. So if you guys are interested, head to the link down below to check out those story times. We just did the charter school video, and I wanted to follow up with the public school video because there's always those people that are like, oh, well, all these issues are public schools as well. Because obviously, if we were talking about public schools, like I guarantee you in this video, there's not going to be people under this video like, well, this happens at charter schools as well. This happens at private schools as well. They're not going to do that because a lot of people have come to the general consensus that charter schools are better than public schools because they really have no option. So let's talk about it.
All our lives, we're told that education is the key to success and that having a high school and college diploma will open up career doors. But not everyone gets the same access to a good quality public education.
The model of going to school to learn is relatively new. Before 1900, most children learned at home and out in the real world. In 1837, the state of Massachusetts formed the first state board of education, with Horace Mann as its secretary. Mann believed that everyone was entitled to the same content in education. Returning from a research trip to Germany in 1848, Mann lobbied heavily to have the Prussian model adopted. He quickly set about establishing a statewide system of common schools, staffed by professionally trained teachers. His ideas quickly gained momentum, and by 1852, Massachusetts passed a compulsory attendance law.
The purpose of it is to create a docile factory military workforce. The whole purpose is to subordinate children and get them in that mindset of being subordinated so they grow up to be subordinated adults. The reality is they want children to take their place in society, be cogs, and keep this system going. So you're going to school to take your place.
Mann also believed that school could become a great equalizer, and values such as obedience to authority, promptness in attendance, and organizing time according to bell ringing would help students prepare for future employment. In an industrial age.
In every public library worth its salt in the United States, and in every college library, you will find a collection of essays by a Prussian philosopher, Johann Fichte. Fichte said we have to set up a system of universal forced schooling in which we destroy the imagination.
And he came in, he sat down in one of the chairs and immediately hung his foot over the chair that was in front of his and just pulled out his phone and started texting away. And of course, realizing that there wasn't enough space for everyone, I went over to him and just very politely said, "Excuse me, would you mind taking your feet down so someone else could sit here?" And he looked up at me, stood up, and immediately started putting his finger in my face and said, "I don't know who the H you think you are." B started cursing at me. "You can't tell me what to do, blah, blah, blah." And I was shaking. I was fresh out of college, 20 years old, brand new to all of this. And I just looked at him and I said, I'm your teacher. And he just said, "You can't tell me what to do, B." And he picked up the desk, threw it at me. And I moved out of the way. And then he walked out of my classroom and I never saw him again until graduation day, when I watched him walk across the stage and they handed this boy a diploma. And I knew he needed my class in order to graduate. And I said, how on earth is this boy crossing the stage and getting a diploma when he was in my class not even 5 minutes, screamed at me, cursed me out, threw a desk at me, and left. And I made a comment to the teacher that was sitting next to me at graduation. I said, how is this possible? What is he doing? How did he graduate? He never came to my class. And she just said, don't ask questions. It's better for him to be graduated and be society's problem than for us to fail him and to have him be our problem for another year. That was her answer.
What up, everybody? I am the Mademoiselle, and this is my channel. Welcome to another video. As you guys can see, we're going to be talking about public schools and how they've dropped the ball, and that's why these charter schools and all these other scamming ass schools are able to exist and thrive in our communities. As I've said numerous times on this platform and my other platforms, I really do not fuck with charter schools, and I genuinely believe that a majority of them have been put in the communities to dumb down the Black and brown children. I do want you guys to understand, right? I'm speaking from my personal experience and based on research and based on a lot of the educators and people that I know personally that work in education. But that doesn't mean that if you've had a good or positive experience, you can't share it down below. So before we get started, please share down below your positive and negative experience. Most notably, if you have a charter school that you would love to give some shine to, I know the charter schools, give some shine. I don't miss these places that you would love to shout out. Please make sure you guys comment it down below, because I think it is important that we do call out and give some praise to the schools that are actually doing the right thing. Now, in regards to me personally, I only have one charter school that I actually liked, that I can actually recommend, and that is Englewood Public Charter Schools. Any other charter I cannot recommend. I just can't. I will not be mentioning said charters. I thought about trying to do breakdowns of certain public and charters. However, I don't know yet, but it's time to talk about the public schools, because realistically, the charter schools would not exist if the public schools were actually doing their fucking job. So understand, like I said in my last video, the issues that I'm talking about in the public and the charter schools often overlap. I'm mainly going to talk about certain issues that are more often in one than the other, right? So some of the issues that I touched on in the last video will translate to this one, but there's some more that I feel like are more specific to public than charter and more specific to charter than public. In general, across schools in the US, all of these issues can be found. I know, all these issues exist throughout the entire educational system. I don't need y'all to comment that. Okay, for the warriors that go hard for the public, go hard for the charter, go hard for the private, go hard for the... I know, okay? I like to keep my shits consistent to one topic, and today, public school is gonna have their day.
Get your kids out of public school. It is effectively a broken system. This was set up based off of an 18th century Prussian model in order to make really, really good conscripts and factory workers. And it is a mass production approach to education, which means it's not interested in the individual goals of your child. It is, at this point, interested in sustaining itself as it is. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is that if you look at our university system, so you want to teach in a public school, gotta have a degree, right? Our university system overall is, on a good day, about 70-30 leftist to conservative or libertarian. On a bad day, it's more like 90-10. And in the education departments of every school, it's more like 95-5. What I mean by that, and James Lindsay has actually done a really, really good job of talking about this in his book called The Marxification of Education. If you look at what's being emphasized within education right now, it's hideous. We're at a point right now where there is such power within that system in order to maintain the status quo, in order to just argue for more funding, but to never do any sort of substantive change that would correct some of the things that we all saw during COVID, that I think at this point it has gotten almost openly hostile.
I had a teacher tell me one time that somewhere on the map didn't exist, but I had been there. And
oh, where they tell you didn't exist?
Dominica. They're like, you mean Dominican Republic? And I'm like, no, Dominica.
She was like 9 years old.
And I'm like, how are you going to tell me it didn't exist? I've literally been there.
Yeah.
And we're arguing, and I get in trouble for that. Mind you, you're my history teacher.
Wow.
So I would get in trouble for stuff like that, just going against the grain.
Was it that you weren't listening, or that
I was
were
bored?
She wasn't him.
Boom.
Yeah, I was so bored.
Caden was the same way.
Yeah.
Man, this conditioning they're doing is just not right.
One of the biggest problems in public education, urban public education today, is liberal and progressive white parents will take their kids from a perfectly good public school, like the one in my neighborhood, and put them into a charter school. And that charter school ends up being almost entirely white kids. Progressive, liberal white kids. Families that go to ICE rallies, that go to Black Lives Matter protests, that put up all of the signs and have and vote straight line Democrat right down the ballot every time. But what they're doing is they're destroying public education. They are being a tool for the conservatives, because conservatives want to destroy public education. And by taking your kid out of a perfectly good, high-functioning public school and putting them into a charter school with a bunch of other white kids, You're removing the amount of money that's there and available for our families that go to public schools. Stop being a tool of the conservatives and start putting your kids back into public school.
My son has 2 more weeks in his elementary school sentence. And then he will not step foot back into a public school ever again.
For those of you guys who do not live in the US, or for those of you guys who do not understand, public schools are America's free school system. And these schools exist to educate any and every child. Most of the time, it's a district-wide thing, but in some places you can choose between which public schools you go to. So I grew up in Elizabeth, New Jersey. I was in Catholic school from pre-K to 8th, and then I shifted to public school for high school, and then I did private for my bachelor's and my master's. I'm gonna tell y'all right now, just like I said in my other video, I had a traumatizing experience in private school. I did not like it. I would still probably put my kids in a private school, mainly because I think the discipline they instill is much needed. But as I get older, I'm like, probably not. I'm not about to pay for my child to be traumatized, but I don't know. Leave your positive experiences down below with any schools that you've had, right? High school was amazing. I loved my teachers. They were great people. I still talk to a lot of my teachers to this day. I threw my high school reunion. That's how much I loved high school. High school was a vibe. And to this day, I'd be like, listen, if I ever become a millionaire, Elizabeth High School, they got my support, like giving them a check. I'm cutting them teachers a check because it was such an amazing experience. And I wouldn't be who I am today without those teachers or my high school. I loved it, right? Now, all that to say, everyone has different experiences with different schools. It goes without saying that public schools have dropped the ball. From the overcrowded classrooms to the budget cuts and the understaffing, those 3 things alone makes the experience a horrible one, because these 3 pillars leads to everything else that we're going to discuss in this video and what we talked about in the previous video. As I said in the previous video, and as I continue to say on my platforms, we all understand that the education system is garbage in the United States. We're having an educational crisis. So realistically speaking, everyone is not doing their part. A lot of people might say it's the parents not doing their part. That's another video for another time. But the fact of the matter is these public schools are supposed to serve the public, right? They're supposed to be there to educate your children. All the children are supposed to be safe, feel safe, be treated equally, and most importantly, leave there with an education. But unfortunately, a majority of the kids cannot read, write, fend for themselves, or do anything for themselves. And there's a lot of reasons for it. When it comes to public schools, a lot of people have opted out of putting their children in public schools because of the violence, inconsistencies, unprofessionalism, and craziness that goes on in public schools. Now, watching this right now, you're probably like, well, I have a really good public school system. And again, I want you to shout it out down below. But for a lot of people, that's not the case, especially in places like Newark, Philadelphia, Brooklyn. There's a lot of different places, especially on the East Coast, that didn't have a choice. That's why there's so many horrible charter schools here, because a lot of these schools took advantage of the fact that the public schools were horrible at doing their job. The only reason I would prefer public over charter is the fact that public people do answer to the public. Public schools answer to the public, and public schools have a place to complain. If you go to your board of education, I guarantee you whatever the complaints are, they won't be resolved, or they're just gonna hide it. That's because public schools are notorious for not being held accountable for their actions and trying to act like shit does not happen.
I pulled my 5-year-old out of Huntsville City Schools because I refused to let him believe bullying is normal. He was repeatedly punched, kicked, called names, and left to process emotions no child should have to carry. After being touched inappropriately and not getting a response back from the school, I reported it to the superintendent. From there, a representative from Huntsville City Schools told me not to call it bullying, but what else will you call repeated physical harm and emotional distress? They have a bullying chat box on their website, yet no one contacted me, and it's nearly been a year. My child was robbed of a chance to simply go to school and learn in peace. School should be a safe zone. Instead, he spent his days overwhelmed, sad, and emotionally drained. I decided immediately to take control of West's story, to give him a space where he feels safe, supported, and inspired again. Because every child deserves to feel excited about learning and protected while doing it.
Good morning, friends. Here's the update on the school situation with the school not releasing my son to me. That was their last day at that school. We are homeschooled now. They will not be returning to public school. That was absolutely insane. And I know that there's a lot of people in the comments saying that that's normal for them. That is not normal. That for a school to not give you your child is insanity. I'm sorry. To me, that's like watching you guys in a pot boil. Like, you're slowly boiling and you don't even realize that you're slowly boiling. They are one step away from telling you that they have more rights to your children than you do. And to me, it's just like, one day you guys are going to wake up and it's going to be like, oh, in our handbook, it says that if you've signed your kids up in public school, the state owns them. And that is just absolutely no. Absolutely no. And I feel very convicted to tell you guys, get your kids out of public schools, because it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get so much worse. If you can homeschool, homeschool.
When I drove past it, the teachers are incredible, and I'm really grateful for them. His school looks like a prison. He is a younger 6th grade student, and so he was already needing a little bit of extra attention outside of class in the 5th grade. When we got to the 6th grade, we quickly realized that this wasn't working for us, and while I am still working, we decided to homeschool. I am not saying that we're going to do this for the rest of his high school career or middle school career. He's in the 6th grade. I don't know. I do know that this is the right decision for our family right now.
Protect our children, because these schools ain't doing it. Like, I'm so livid about this. I found out yesterday that my niece, who is in special education, she is nonverbal, she is autistic, she is 5 years old. And I found out that my poor baby girl niece has been getting pinched by her teacher. She goes to school to be safe. She goes to school to learn. And she's getting pinched by her teacher. Like, it's so unfair for my poor little niece who doesn't have a voice for herself. We don't have all the details of it yet. We're still kind of waiting for the investigation to completely come out. But, like, I'm just so upset for my poor baby girl niece. So if you have a child who is autistic, if you have a child who can't speak for themselves, like, please be their voice. Put them in a place that you know that they're safe, with people you trust. Because, like I said, these schools ain't keeping them safe. They aren't keeping them safe.
Y'all already know, I just said I went to Elizabeth High School, and there is a very concerning and sad story going on right now. It's a current situation where a child committed the S word after a meeting with the parent and themselves at the school. They got upset with the outcome of the meeting, ran out, ran home, and found their parents glicky. It's so sad because Elizabeth Public Schools hasn't really said much of anything for a long time. If they've done something now, okay, I'll see if I see any updates on if they ever did anything about that. But for the most part, this is something that's been going on for years in Elizabeth Public Schools, where there's situations that happen, there's bullying concerns, there's violence, and a lot of the time the school doesn't really say much about it. They try to act like it didn't happen until things blow over. And I think that's completely unacceptable, right? A lot of these public schools really love acting like shit ain't happening when it's happening. Like, I will say, right, as somebody that went to school for public relations, okay, I went to school for PR, no response is the best response, okay? Always understand that. No response is the best response. But at the same time, not when you're dealing with children, and not when your liability or your reputation is heavily at stake, right? If it's one of those things where people are just talking shit, or they don't like that you did something, or that you're handling your business a certain way, you don't really have to respond to that. But when it comes to people literally losing their lives, being maimed or hurt, I think it is imperative that you give a response, or at least show that you care. And a lot of public schools have done a horrible job with that, okay? Especially Elizabeth. And I already told you I love Elizabeth High School, but I'm not going to be biased and act like my positive experiences cancel out other people's negative experiences. There have been some horrible stories to come out about Linden Public Schools, okay? That's close to Elizabeth. Shit, Newark Public Schools, forget about it. I don't even need to go down that rabbit hole. That's why these charter schools are able to exist and thrive in these communities, because these public schools literally sound like a nightmare. But then, you know, you see a school has these pretty little brochures, they have these cute little uniforms, they're screaming at the kids, it's military style or not, it depends on the school, and you're like, I love this is great, college readiness. And it's like, yeah, no, the same shit that's going on in the public schools is happening in the charters as well. It's unfortunate that public schools are not a better place for a majority. It's unfortunate that a lot of times parents are choosing between the lesser of two evils. It's like, okay, either I'm gonna, put my kid in public and face the consequences, or I'm gonna put my kid in private and go broke, or I'm gonna put my kid in a charter and face the consequences. Like, it's so crazy that a lot of times there's no real choice, right? Where you can put your child. You do have a choice in how active you are in your kid's life. A lot of you guys, that's the problem. I think you guys don't understand. Like, if you guys raised hell more, spoke about your experiences, and put those reports in, a majority of everything that I'm talking about in any of my videos across any of my platforms would not be happening, because these people are only getting away with this shit because the parents are not complaining enough. I, as staff, can complain, they don't give a fuck. Kids complain, they don't give a fuck. You, as a parent, you complain, the shit gonna change tomorrow. I guarantee it, because if you pull your kid out of that school, that means less money for them. A lot of these public schools only care about the seats. That's why they accept kids even though they know they can't handle certain children, whether we're talking about IEPs. You have a lot of people that there do the bare minimum as teachers, or because they feel like they can get away with it, and they do. And that goes into my next point. A lot of these public schools get away with murder. I did add a trigger warning in the beginning, but trigger warning again, talks about essay, especially regarding children. So skip ahead.
Adriana Cobb Williams was found not guilty, even after being caught on camera kissing that student, even after taking a stand admitting to kissing the student. But let me tell you why the jurors came to that verdict. Now, Adriana was facing 2 counts of first-degree actual contact by an employee or an agent. The first count was for the kissing. The second count was for oral. Now, the judge deemed after the first day of trial that kissing is not an actual explicit act and dropped that charge. So that means when the jurors went back to deliberate, they could not consider that photo. They could not consider the kissing. So when she took the stand and she admitted to only kissing him, they could not consider that or hold that against her. Now, shout out to Best Dressed Public Defender here on TikTok. She posted a screenshot from the juror who was explaining like they realized that she had did something wrong, but they had strict rules that they had to follow when coming up with this verdict, and they could not consider that kiss at all. What's even more crazy is that people are excusing and saying, oh, he was 17, it's okay. Y'all, look how he was acting on a stand.
This is the mugshot of former Crosby Elementary principal Wendy Bailey, booked into the Kaufman County Jail last week. According to an arrest warrant obtained by Fox 4 Wednesday, Bailey was allegedly aware of serious allegations against one of her special education teachers before recommending his hiring, and failed to report new allegations against him. Last week, Fox 4 reported on the arrest of Jonathan Michael, accused of physically and sexually abusing nonverbal students under his care. He's charged with injury to a child and child grooming.
Cincinnati monster, who was once a basketball coach at a college preparatory high school, decided that he was going to abuse his power and have sexual relations with one of the students, a 16-year-old basketball student, in her own bedroom. And not only is he charged with sexual battery, he's also charged with grooming this little girl. And this is a new charge that Cincinnati just approved last year to make sure that these type of situations stick and they get harsher punishment. And this is the problem in the world. This is the shit that needs to be addressed. Because why are these men wanting, or women wanting, because it's both ways, wanting these kids and to have sexual acts and thoughts about a child in this manner? Like all the other bullshit we have going on, this shit is at the height. I'm talking about the height of it all. Like, this needs to be handled and figured out immediately. I'm talking about this needs to be a call of action, Congress, somebody, because this type of stuff gets swept up under the rug. Even in the Epstein files, they don't care about those kids. They only trying to uphold the billionaires and the millionaires. And then that's just the truth. And they get a slap on the wrist while y'all want to send people forever in a way for drugs and other crimes. But not for messing with a child and taking advantage of a child who mentally is going to be messed up for forever and probably go do it again or repeat the, you know what I'm saying? Like, that type of stuff happens. But y'all know what to do. Get in the comments. Let's go. This is fucking ridiculous and he needs to be handled. I'm talking about he incarcerated and I hope they fucking him. I'm talking about with brooms and everything. Y'all know what to do. Get in the comments. Let's go. And I do not promote violence.
I'm beginning to think that the American education system is a scam. It's free. You can get your high school diploma by doing bare minimum. But a lot of these promises that these schools are making is a joke when your kid is probably going to come out not being able to even spell their fucking name. I wish that was an over-exaggeration, but a lot of these kids are illiterate.
She wore a suit, clothes that were... What the fuck does that say? Why am I reading this? No, I'm not reading this. This is a whole bunch of bullshit.
The colonel asked the choir to accommodate the governor's schedule.
What does that mean?
He's asking the choir to accommodate to the governor's schedule, right?
Yeah, in your own words.
There's a governor's schedule, and so the colonel is asking the choir to accommodate to it.
In your own words.
I don't know, bro.
The colonel asked the choir to accommodate the governor's schedule.
Alright, what does that mean?
Right? They asked the people to sing for the governor's schedule. I don't know what this means. The colonel asked the choir to accommodate the governor's schedule.
What does that mean?
He asked the choir to accommodate. I don't know.
I'm coming on here to have a response to what's been going on. The viral videos of the students, the high school students who cannot read the index card with silhouette, extraordinary, gauche, etc. Students aren't reading. Students aren't reading anymore. And if you're thinking about that, you said, well, they're supposed to be reading in school. Yes, they're supposed to be reading in school. It's true, they are reading in school, but we are reading excerpts. We are reading passages. We are reading articles. We're not really reading novels. When do we have time for that? When is there time in the day for that anymore? There isn't. There's a lot going on in the teaching world, and a lot that teachers are expected to teach and do. But ask yourself this question. Students are supposed to be reading every night for 20 minutes or more, depending on your grade level. Ask yourself, how often do you see your student reading a novel at home? How often is that? Now, if you're a parent who's like, yes, I see my student basically read 20 minutes every single day, I sign off on their sheet, I ask them questions on what's going on in the story, then that's exactly where your student needs to be. But if you're a parent and you say, actually, come to think of it, I never see my student reading at home, then that's when it needs to start. It needs to start now, right? So your student needs to pick up a book and they need to be reading every day for 20 minutes. And then you need to talk about what's going on in the book. You need to ask them questions. They need to be filling some sort of questionnaire sheet that talks about what they're reading and what they're understanding. If you think about it this way, if your student is playing Fortnite every day, they're gonna get better. After a year, they're gonna be really good. Like, you're gonna play with them and you're gonna be like, I don't even know how to play this game. I don't know how to play that game, but they're going to be great at that game. If they play soccer every day, they're going to be better at the end of the year. They're going to be really great. We're expecting these students to be reading, to be proficient at reading, and they're not practicing the reading. They're not doing it. So they're never, ever going to get better at reading if they don't actually read. Writing comes hand in hand with reading. If the student is a strong reader, chances are they're a strong writer and a strong speller. Also, the comprehension levels are higher. So all of that goes hand in hand. They are reading, they are better writers, they are better spellers, they are better at comprehending. They are not reading, they're having trouble writing, they're having trouble spelling, they're not using capital letters, they're not using punctuation, they're not seeing it on the paper. So all of that comes hand in hand.
There's no reason that schools serve the public, and this is what they're doing to the public's children. It's disgusting. Let's talk about the food. I wanted to talk about this in my charter video, but I was like, talk about it in the public school video because the school food that I've seen in public and charter schools are usually different, not usually the same types of companies. But I'll say public school food is real bad. I understand feeding the children and the fact that a lot of children do not have the opportunity to eat. I get all that. But what I don't get, right? Like what I truly don't get and I truly don't understand and I truly want to understand is why the food has to be so fucking nasty. Why can't we just order some chicken? Get some chicken strips and some white rice with some broccoli. Why can't it just be some ground beef, some mashed potatoes and some carrots? Why can't the lunch ladies just cook that? With the charter schools that I've been to, a lot of times it is the lunch ladies actually cooking food from scratch. It's still nasty, but it is food from scratch and it is mostly better for you than the reproduced bullshit that I see at a lot of these public schools. Like the food. I wish I still had videos of a lot of the food that the kids used to show me so I could show you guys. Those were charter school lunch videos. I'm going to put a compilation right here of people talking about their food experiences. You guys are going to be like, what the fuck is going on? Yes, it's really that bad.
Very yummy meal.
What the fuck? I just want to show you what's being served at school today.
Bro, this shit does not move. This is our school lunch.
Until they fix this shit.
Oh,
Yo!
Open it up. Oh!
Then I realized what it is.
These free school lunches are nasty.
It's not edible. It's not fucking.
It's a tray right here.
Oh my
God!
Jet2 holiday. And right now, you can save £50.
If you are shocked by this and you're a parent, it's more than likely because you don't talk to your kids, right? Because a majority of kids are not eating this shit. A lot of kids, if their parents got it, their parents are giving them $5 to $20 every single day so they can get lunch. Okay, so they can get something to eat, so they can survive off of Doritos and a Gatorade instead of eating this slop. So I don't know. I feel like the public school shit low-key do be worse. Like, it's edible, you know, but it is really, really bad. If you guys do not live in Jersey, let me just tell you how my school district, so I live in East Orange, like ran out of money. And then West Orange, you know, the town next over, they're running out of money. And then, yeah, like basically all the teachers are being left without a job. They're in limbo. They don't know what they're about to do. And because they're in limbo, a lot of the teachers are quitting and finding different contracts because it just doesn't make sense.
You are not in need of these layoffs. Everyone knows it. You are choosing to lay people off.
Pandemic-era funding, known as ESSER funds, ended in September 2024, leaving roughly 250,000 education jobs or $24 billion worth of labor hanging in the balance. States fund education based on the number of students.
As enrollment declines, we need fewer teachers and other staff because we have fewer students to serve.
But since the pandemic, many schools added staff and are now experiencing what experts call a fiscal cliff.
The ESSER funds expired and they no longer had those funds to support the added services from the pandemic. Then they had to make decisions about that staff. And so in many cases, they're laid off.
It's like a family wins the lottery and says, wow, I have $1 million this year. I should buy a new house that has $1 million mortgage. There's no way you're going to be able to pay that next year. You're just using that money for this year. We actually warned school districts in advance. Be careful about this money because if you take on recurring financial commitments, you're going to really find that in 2025, we'll be calling it the bloodletting.
Parents and teachers didn't just oppose the layoffs. They accused the district of poor planning, misplaced priorities, and cutting the wrong corners.
Teacher salaries are barely 30% of the district's entire budget. So cutting 10% of us means you're only saving 3% overall. I'm not a math teacher, but what are you doing? Why must we do this every year? Having to face these reduction in force cuts, these rifts, year after year is exhausting.
I just be trying to understand where the fuck the money goes. Like, I understand operating budgets, but I don't be understanding where the money's going when we're firing teachers. We already don't have teachers because we're understaffed, and then you're talking about we might have to close or we can't operate. Now we're having half days. Like, it's just I'm trying to genuinely understand it. Like, I literally just be sitting here like, where is the money actually going? A lot of you guys probably already know the answer. The people up top are getting paid a pretty fucking penny, right? Now, when it comes to charter schools, a lot of times understand that the people at the top are not even certified or qualified. Most public schools don't play that shit. You need to be certified. Bare minimum, you got to have a bachelor's and a master's. And most of the time, they're going to make you go to school. They'll even pay for it to put you through. Sometimes some charters do that, but a majority of the time, oftentimes they're not. Most public schools are not going to hire just anyone off the street like a charter will, okay? And all that to say, when it comes to a lot of these public school people, they be making a lot of fucking money. I remember speaking to a superintendent one time. That nigga was clearing almost $200K. I'm like, why do you need a $200,000 salary? Maybe 150, that'd be all right. 125, 100, 200,000 to be a superintendent. What the fuck do you do? Like, you don't even see the superintendent like that. I don't be understanding. If I'm not mistaken, he was eventually fired and had moved to another district anyway. But the point that I'm trying to get at is a lot of times, a lot of these people are being overpaid at the higher levels, and you don't really see what they do. You can't even reach them in case of emergency or an inquiry or to advocate for yourself or your child. It just doesn't, it's not lining up. It really isn't. And it's all hurting these children. These children deserve more. They deserve advocates. They deserve active staff. They deserve staff that's actually getting paid to do what they're supposed to do. But unfortunately, they're not. Next, we have building and facility issues. This one's very hit or miss. I feel like a lot of the public school buildings are old as fuck. And that's where I see a majority of these issues. But From personal experience only, I would say I've only seen structural issues with charters, right? Like in terms of flooding, ceilings falling down, no heat, pipe issues, all that. I would say I see a majority of that in the charters, but that's a different type of issue, especially when I'm seeing it in charter schools. I'm seeing it in brand new buildings or borrowed buildings. It just don't really make sense. It's how you got a charter school, right? And you built a brand new building and the fucking ceiling tiles are falling down on kids' heads. That doesn't even make sense. Why are the pipes burst in a building that you are renting? What is actually going on here, right? Both of them have issues with their structures. Public schools, baby. A lot of these schools are over 100 years old, and it shows. A lot of them are falling apart from the inside out. Cockroaches, rats, paint peeling, roof leaking, no heat, no AC, to the point where schools are closing early because the AC don't work. They don't want the kids to have a heat stroke. It's too cold in the building. They don't want the kids to not have heat. The last charter I was at, it was the same thing. They had no heat because they're renting a building. First, it was the landlord didn't turn on the heat. Then it was, oh, there's something wrong with the pipes. They have somebody fix it. Then we were virtual. Then the pipes burst. Then school flooded. It was a whole thing, right? I'll say both of them have their fair share of issues, but when it comes to public schools, since there's such a lack of funding, a majority of these public schools are not being rebuilt. They're not being built from scratch. They're reusing buildings, keeping the same school for the past 200 years or so, and these buildings are falling apart. A lot of the money is being put towards the salaries and the supplies for the kids rather than the building itself. Lack of resources. Again, I don't really understand where the money is going in public or private school because it's always excuses. Meanwhile, the big niggas is paid, right? The lack of resources pisses me off and is part of the reason why I don't allow tech in my classroom. Besides the fact that the kids can truly benefit from writing on paper, I truly almost never have had all the tools that I needed in any classroom in order to run it via tech. There's never any laptops. If there's laptops, they're not charged. If there's laptops, they're broken. By the time we try to give all the kids a laptop, 30 minutes done ran through and I have 20 minutes left of class and it doesn't make sense anymore. So I just make niggas write on paper. I don't have time for it. They don't need no tech. They see enough of their screen anyway. They always on their goddamn phone. They don't need to be on the phone in my class anyhow. Now, a lot of you guys will be like, what? These kids be writing in dance? Yeah, dance is more than just throwing feet and arms. There's way more to dance than just dance, literally. There's the science behind it. There are terms you need to learn. There's vocabulary you need to retain. There are different types of techniques you need to learn on paper. So yeah, like, you do right, and there are books for dance, okay? I always do it on paper. I've never been able to use tech, so I just don't. And I think it's really unfortunate because me as a dance teacher, I can pivot. But for a lot of other teachers, they can't. They need the tech. They need the videos. They need every child to be able to get on whatever, to take their little quizzes. And it's really unfortunate when you have like 32 kids in a class and you only have 26 laptops. And now you have to sit here and shuffle and try to find more. That is just not acceptable, especially with districts retaining millions of dollars every year for kids, but some way, somehow can't figure out where the fuck to get laptops and stuff for their kids. Now it's time to talk about specialized programs, because personally, I see this as more of an issue in public schools than charter. There's almost never any enrichment programs for children that fall out of the lines of the just, you know, like sports, like basketball, soccer, volleyball. And even at that, sometimes it's just basketball for the boys and then volleyball for the girls. And then that's about it, because there's no money for specials. So a lot of times when it comes to those arts and special programs and special classes, we are the first to go. Okay, I'm okay with that because a lot of times these places is toxic anyway, and I can't wait for the contract to run out. But I think it's unfortunate that the only specials a lot of these kids ever get to do is art. That's a very common one. Or the second one is usually music. Dance is a specialty. You don't really see that in the majority of schools. Music is also a specialty. You almost always see art. All three are specialties, but you'll always see art for the most part. You'll almost always see music. Dance is very rare. And then of course you'll have more specialty programs such as cooking, cosmetology, robotics, some sort of STEM, whatever. I think these are very important because it gives the child a break, an opportunity to do something else, learn something new, find different interests. And of course, they still need elective credits. So elective teachers, specials teachers are just as important as other teachers, right? A lot of people have a misconception that as specials teachers, we have a grand time, right? Oh, all you gotta do is paint. All you gotta do is dance. All you gotta do is play the drums. Like, you must have fun at your job. No, because as artists, it sucks that we have to grade art. That's a very unnatural thing to do. I didn't realize that until I worked at my second charter. My first charter, it wasn't a graded thing. My second one, it was purely academic. The kids had to earn the credit. So it was hard having to grade these kids on their dances or grade them on their pas de bourrée. Like, how am I going to grade that? Like, they can't do it that well. A lot of them are new to dancing. It was very difficult. It's very difficult to put a grade to art because art is about expression. It's about being your true self. It's about what you put on the table, what you leave out there, what you want people to learn about you through your art. For a lot of us, it is difficult because we are the first to go. A lot of people like to think that we're like the least educated, the least qualified. And it's like a majority of art teachers that I know specifically did it for the passion and the love, not because they had the least amount of education. As a matter of fact, I'm usually more educated than a majority of the staff members at my job. I just be laughing at them when they be trying to play to my face. It's like, listen, let's go degree for degree. Let's go. Like, what are you talking about? Like, niggas just having associates and they want to talk shit. That ties to the point that I made in my previous video about charters. Like, a lot of these schools really do just be hiring any and everybody, and a lot of times they're not qualified. Personally, I have not seen that in a public school yet, except for after school enrichment programs, nonprofits, which I'm going to have a dedicated video on that because I think a lot of these people are also running a fucking scam. It's part of the reason I decided to start my own nonprofit because I don't like the shit that I've seen there. I think the issues there are probably worse than what I've seen in schools. I wanted to be different and I want to make a change. Really live on the be the change that you want to see principle. And I wanted to see change. So that's why I started my nonprofit. For institutions that answer to the public, there's absolutely no reason why there's never any answers as to why there's no money. Like, that's the shit that really pisses me off more than anything, and I think is what really fucks up a lot of the public schools because the lack of funding is really truly fucking a lot of them up. A lot of these schools really do not have enough money to run and sustain themselves, so it trickles down into other issues that a lot of people don't really think about. If you have no money, you're not going to have as many programs. If you have less programs, the kids don't have many options. If the kids don't have many options, they're going to act out and do whatever it is that they can to get these options, even though they don't really understand it's not going to really do much. Imagine if the kids really liked art and now you fired the art teacher because you didn't have any money. It's like now you replaced it with something cheaper. You found a cheaper music teacher. The kids are going to act out. They're not going to give a fuck. Maybe they grew an attachment to that art teacher, which I've seen happen numerous times. It happened to me at my previous job. They were attached to the past dance teacher because she was there for 3 years. And I come in and it was difficult to even get anyone to join the team or much less audition. I did have a good amount of kids audition, but joining the team is difficult because a lot of them had an allegiance to the old teacher and I was coming in the middle of the school year. Now I'm having behavioral concerns because I'm struggling to build relationships. There's lack of discipline, lack of follow through. You see how one little thing trickles into something else. Like if you guys have been watching the videos on my personal channel, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of it doesn't need to be that difficult, but it is because a lot of people are dropping the ball and not doing their jobs. For those of you guys watching this who are parents, you need to do your job. A lot of y'all don't understand how much power you have as parents. You guys are in charge of these children. Therefore, if you raise hell, and you go up in there and you say, listen, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like that my kid's going through this, I don't like that the school be doing that, and you put in those complaints to the right places, things will change. But unfortunately, a lot of y'all don't give a fuck about your kids, and that's another video for another time. A lot of y'all do not care, and it shows. I think a lot of people are unaware of how they act and how the way they act translates to the fact that they don't care about their kids. I think a lot of people don't understand that, like, you not coming to parent conference meetings, you not coming to board of education meetings, you not engaging with the child at home because now the kid is not giving in homework. You not, like, it all translates to, I don't give a fuck about my kid. I don't care how busy you are. I don't got kids because I know I ain't got the time for it. I don't have the time and I don't have the energy that I would want or need to pour into a child. So I don't have them. I made that choice. As adults, we all made choices. If you made a choice to lay down and have a child, you need to be very active in that child's life. It's not okay to just have kids and throw them out into the wild, wild west or throw them in a school and think that the school is going to raise them. No school is going to raise your kids, or better yet, save your kids if you're not doing the work. The entire education system in the United States needs a complete overhaul, but there are things you can do to help your kids. Ask questions, do what you can, make sure you are there. File those fucking reports. I beg. Okay, I beg. With that being said, make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. Shout out to all the patrons and the investors. If you are subscribed, I love you so very much, especially for those of you guys who've been around for such a long time. If you think you subscribed but you not, just check. Just make sure you double tap that notification bell, hype up the video, check out my other channels if you miss me, and check out my Instagram because I'm always posting on there. I'm gonna see y'all next time. Bye!